Call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular scheduled October 25th, 2022 City of Fort Clint Council meeting in the Linda Hartlove Council Chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, Lord's Prayer, and a moment of silence for those serving in the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Would you please call the roll?
Kelly Gangle. Here. Pat Hovis. Here. Beth Gilman. Here. Roseanne Hickman.
Present.
Richard Morgan.
Here.
Margaret Phillips. Here. Jerry Trolley.
Present.
Council, you previously received the October 13, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam President, I move to approve the regular meeting notes from October 13th.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. Hickman to approve the October 13, 2022 regular meeting minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. The chair notes that certification has been made regarding compliance with the rules and notifications of this meeting. We have no guest presentation. Public comment.
Paul Thatcher, 912 East Perry Street. If you could please stand at the podium and then.
This is basically to find out with Tracy and Kelly if anything has been done on the proposal I gave you on suggestions of the sand coming across Perry Street, especially on the corner of Perry, Oak, and Inn by the city park. The suggestion, I had about 7 different options.
Sure.
Either way.
I discuss it with Tracy when I know them, so I can let him give an
Sure.
idea.
Yeah, he came in and met me. Mr. Thatcher came in and we talked about it. Some ideas of putting some fencing up there, extending the wall there from the beach area. I have not talked to Tom Evans about that at all yet. Snow fence, and then building it up and planting some grasses. I have had conversation with the people that are doing the wetlands project, so to get what products would work and not be the height that we need to keep it at. So yes, so that they are working on that. Obviously it won't get done this fall. I mean, that'd be a springtime project anyway. You and I talked about not cleaning the beach as much up that high, and I've already talked to my people about that also. Letting the grass grow somewhat, which will help some. It's not going to stop it, obviously, you know that. And once we started grooming the beach, it definitely softened the sand, and then it started to blow more when we had problems. So. But those are the things that, I think little things like that can be done, yes, sir.
It's definitely obvious where there's that little bit of grass.
Correct.
There's no sand on the road.
Absolutely.
Where there is sand. And also, years ago, there used to be a fence up in the winter for snow, protect snow. The grass would have an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, we groomed it, and I had a talk with them because we groomed it all year, made the beach bigger. Obviously, you knew that. So, but yes, we need to get some more of the grass or native grass in there to help stop that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Meg Blackburn, 908 East Perry Street.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I basically was reading over from notes that Kelly gave, and I just wanted to understand the 3-foot does not include weeds, is that right?
I'll let Ms. Schenker answer that question.
That is correct. In the covenants, it specifically states shrubbery, which would be a bush. I can get that for you and read it to you if you'd like.
Okay.
Just give me 1 minute.
Mosier, 8, I believe, 02 East Perry, is that
Yes.
correct? Thank you.
First, thanks for everything everybody does for our city, because it's come a long way. And thanks, Kelly, for listening to our concerns. The city went into a contract or an agreement. The land, I don't know if all of you are aware of that, the land across the street from a lot of our homes was donated under specific conditions that be taken care of. I have a copy of everything that was supposed to be followed. We've really been very patient with what's going on over there. The rules state that there's not supposed to be anything erected. And if anything, it says no shrubbery shall extend above 3 foot. I looked up shrubbery, what's over there, and in my opinion, and it would have to go before, it's shrubbery, and it's way over 3 foot. The people that donated the land donated it to and did the covenant to protect the houses that were there and to give beautiful land. I mean, that's a very pricey property that they donated. And we don't feel that that it's being followed. There's a lot of things that are not being followed in our opinion. It looks kind of rough over there. And we just ask that the city please follow the agreement that they signed to in July of '61. Please.
Excuse me, could I ask you a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
Where exactly are you talking about on Perry Street? Are you talking at the marsh, or are you talking toward the
wetland.
The wetland?
Well, our concern is the wetland in front of us, but it extends, what this agreement entails extends beyond that. In fact, I forget how far exactly it goes. Between Hayes and Maple. That certain things are supposed to be followed. They're not allowed to put anything over there at all. And it's obviously, there are things over there, and they said that we had asked, and I have confirmation that I said, please don't make mounds, because they were making mounds. And the Corps of Engineers they took the mounds out, but then when they went to put the fence in, the city put the mounds back up. And now they're saying those mounds are natural. They are not natural, they were there. They were built up for the fence to go there, and now it's taking the view away from not just us, but everybody that goes by. And it looks kind of ratty over there. It can be groomed. And I understand that the city went into an agreement, but with the Corps of Engineers or whatever, but first they went into an agreement that they would keep that land under these conditions.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
The agreement, you said you donated that land, so you.
I didn't.
But those people who lived on the south side of Perry Street,
I'm not exactly sure, we have to look that up yet, who donated that land, but it is on the beach side.
but it was in '61 that this happened,
61 that it was signed.
and so you gave this land to the city, there was no reimbursement.
There's a deed.
There was a deed under conditions, strict conditions, and it
Was that all along Perry Street from Jefferson? Because I thought I remember years ago that the city paying those people for that land. Not that
No,
it makes a
from-
difference what you're saying, I'm just
from
trying to get some history
Hayes,
here.
am I right on this? From Hayes to town, those people sold that land
Okay,
for a certain amount. But from Hayes to, what was it? Maple, that was donated under certain conditions.
okay. And, I mean, the point is the same. I understand why we're not following what we're supposed to be following, I understand that, whether you gave it or donated. Okay, I'm just trying to get some history here. Thank you.
Colson, if you can clarify that. I mean, I know the Army Corps is in there working
Army
in
Corps,
this.
for the money that we received, the fence had to go up. I fought against the fence and it was not, it had to be. Just like those wires that go across to keep the geese and everything, the birds out of there. So the plan is, as of right now, they just came back in August or September, as you guys saw, and planted all kinds more pods. We have to leave the fence up through the springtime. I've tried to talk them out in the spring to be able to take that out. I asked them about grooming the stuff right now. Absolutely not. They need the pods to take hold and do that. So in the spring, we have got a agreement with the Fish and Wildlife, and I think everybody knows that, to come in to basically maintain and do all that area right there. Obviously, from all you guys' view, the Phragmite is gone. That was a problem for years.
With us.
Maybe not from you, but all the way down, it was a big time problem. We even tried to burn it and all that stuff. Well, this will be a nice thing when it's done. I anticipate this spring that the fence will be able to come down. Fish and Wildlife will come in. They will do all the grooming and take care of all that stuff for us. That is the plan as we sit here today. So,
But it was the plan in
it was never the
61.
plan. No, the plan
No,
was
wasn't the
always the
plan-
plant, the plants, and the plants got pushed way back, and so they just replanted the plants, and they have to take hold.
The plans, the agreement was accepted in 61 that nothing goes over there. Nothing be constructed. Well, I guess my question is, why would the city go against that agreement?
I can't answer that. I can only tell you what I'm doing with it now. So that's what I'm telling you. That's the plan. We've been through this 100 times. It's a temporary fence. It's not a permanent structure.
Doesn't matter.
In your case, I'm sure it doesn't. But I think when it's all said and done and we have it groomed up, it'll be the perfect spot. So that's all I can answer.
In the agreement, it said never. It doesn't say temporary. It says never anything be constructed across there. We let that be go over there thinking that it was going to be groomed better, but the fence is 4 foot, 5 foot, and the weeds are a foot over that. And it just looks bad.
Can I see if I have this right then? Factually, she is correct. The fence is more than 3 feet, the weeds are tall.
Sure.
What you're saying is that to get a long-term solution, we had to do this for a year or so, about
Correct.
3. Because before that, the Phragmite were overgrown and settled. And the only way to keep them from coming back is doing what we're doing now.
Sure.
So we are temporarily violating the agreement,
I
which we
agree.
are,
I would agree
for a
with that.
long-term solution.
Well, let's
Now,
hope so.
my question, I want to ask you, if that is accurate, and I have no reason to doubt Mr. Colson there, if they hadn't done that, would you be happy with stuff growing, or would you expect the city to trim that and mow it? I mean, what is your solution? And I'm not trying to be nasty, I just really want to know what the solution is.
Okay, there was never any Phragmite across from us. There was not. It was a beautiful grassy area. And they made an agreement to dig it out. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. That's why
Oh,
I'm asking these
they
questions.
dug that whole thing out and then planted there. It was beautiful before, and people were using the beach over there. It was lovely. During COVID, it was absolutely lovely to see all those people over there. I don't know why the city included that
No,
part.
and
That
she is correct, and that was added on to the wetlands to extend the wetlands.
Okay.
That, I can't answer how or how that got to that point,
Did
but
we
that's,
decide that?
yeah,
Are
the
Corps of
city
Engineers?
definitely decided that.
When was that done?
When this project started, it's been 3 or 4 years ago by now, I'm guessing. I mean,
But
maybe
it
5
totally
years,
went against the agreement.
maybe 5 years ago. I mean, it's probably been that long, 5 to 6, so.
I think it.
But yeah, she is
Under
absolutely correct in her
previous
statement.
Administration
Yeah.
Yes,
entered into the agreement.
Okay.
right.
And they did mow the grass every week. They kept the weeds down as the agreement showed that it was supposed to, all of it showed that there's supposed to be no shrubs over there. Then they went in and put the stuff in that looks bad, in our opinion.
Okay.
And in anybody that comes to my house.
One more question. And I wasn't around when this all happened, so let's assume we screwed up, okay? Let's assume we did that. What is your solution now? should they take the fence and all the stuff down now? Because if they do that now, I think we're gonna get bigger problems down the road. I have a feeling, I could be wrong.
I think, I'm sad that they did what they did. I'm very
Agreed.
upset because when we bought our house, we bought it under the stipulation of these rules being kept.
I understand that. My question is, let's assume that was a horrible mistake.
Okay.
What is your solution now?
They gotta keep the weeds down. They gotta keep the weeds down. It looks terrible, and according to this, they're only supposed to put in fill and certain fill, and then dirt on the top of it, and then sod on the top of that. Not plants,
I
sod.
know, and let's assume, again, that was all wrong. But so you're saying we should take the stuff that the Army Corps engineer down, is that what you want us to do? I'm trying to figure out what you want us to do. Assuming we made a horrible mistake 3, 4, 5 years ago, I'll just give you that. What are we supposed to do?
Do you want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
Take it back to the way it was,
Okay, that's all I want to know, thank you.
because it was beautiful.
If I can say something, I guess we don't really know what the end result is gonna be. We got a rendering that looks nothing like what's happened a long time ago. So we don't really know what's gonna happen over there, and nobody seems to be able to tell us, other than it's gonna be beautiful.
But that, okay, now, again, that area where you guys are talking about, that was dug out and everything.
Dug out,
So
and there
Last
was,
year.
So what
and there were
you,
more mounds put
so
up.
what you're asking for is to fill it back in, take the fence down.
Or at least show us what the end result is going to be. We keep hearing it's gonna be beautiful, but
It
from
doesn't
what
look
we
beautiful.
see, we're not seeing.
It looks like a weedy mess. You see it.
Okay, fair enough, understood.
Mr. Shanker, did you have something to add?
Just some legal
Thank you.
clarification, because this conversation is getting way off topic. There's more than one covenant that the city is involved in. One, the city is involved in the covenant that you referred to. The second, the city in 2015 got involved with in an environmental covenant with the Army Corps of Engineers. And the city, if we violate the environmental covenant with the Army Corps of Engineers, which was put into place in 2015, the city will be fined a lot of money. So we cannot, one, rip everything out. We cannot take down the fence. This is a project that's been ongoing for many years. We have to see the project through because the city has put a lot of money into it. The Army Corps of Engineers has put a lot of money into it. And there's been a lot of funding that's been going into this project. So we cannot just stop because there's weeds there. This has to be seen through the end. It's out of our control. We can't do anything. Whoever began this project back in 2015, I don't know what their reasoning was, but that's when they constructed the wetlands, and that's, you know, and it's an ongoing project.
Okay, but you had the covenants from the deed way prior to that.
Well, I wasn't here, but you're referring to 1961. I have a quitclaim deed right here, which states that on October 23rd, 2009, it says for valuable consideration, the Trust for Public Land, which is what you might be referring to.
Yes.
This is 2009, not 1961. A nonprofit benefit corporation under the laws of California, which is the grantor, hereby grants and quitclaims to the city of Port Clinton, an Ohio political subdivision whose tax mailing address is 1868 Perry Street, Port Clinton, Ohio, grantee the following described premises situated in the county of Ottawa, state of Ohio, which is legally described as. We went on the Ottawa County Auditor's tax page, and the address that you're including, the wetlands, was deeded to the city in a quitclaim deed in 2009 by the Trust for Public Land.
Does not the restrictions from the
No, but
prior
you're-
deed follow?
But you're
though?
indicating from 1961. I'm just saying that this was included. I have a whole list of covenants that you're probably referring to. I don't know if we have the same paperwork, but the list of covenants and restrictions is right here. And this is what the city is bound to. This is what took place. This is what the city is bound to. And one of them, you know, you have to read the law. The law is black and white unless there's an exception to the law. There's no room for interpretation of what the law states. I mean, that's just how it is, unfortunately. But it states rights and restrictions. So it says in 1937, the city of Port Clinton acquired an easement for highway purposes from Oliver J. True Estate and from George A. True for an approximately 150-foot wide strip of land to relocate Perry Street. We know that. That's perpetual easement and right of way to be for public highway road purposes and was subject to the following conditions. So here's the first set of restrictions. It says number 1, no overhead wires and no wires above the level of the ground should be placed upon the right of way. It says that no shrubbery or trees should be placed upon the right of way, which are permitted to grow to a height of more than 2.5 feet without the consent of the property owners abutting Perry Street. And number 3, it says the highway shall not be constructed in an elevation in excess of 580 feet above mean sea level. So that's the first set of restrictions that's listed in here. The second,
That was what year?
this states that this portion right here states in 1937.
37.
Right, so it goes back different years for different portions because there's different things
Oh,
that happen.
okay.
But that's the first set of rights and restrictions that I found in here. The second one is, I think the one you're specifically referring to, states, lastly, in 1961, Leslie E. Meyer, as trustee, conveyed the lands north of Perry Street from the east line of Hayes Avenue to the east line of Maple Street to the city of Port Clinton in trust for the residents of Port Clinton for use as a park. This deed of trust was made subject to the following conditions and restrictions. Number 1, no part of said premises shall ever be used for any commercial purpose whatsoever, nor shall any building or structure be erected thereon which shall extend above the ground. A fence, though, is not a structure. A structure is a building, an outhouse, a shed. It's something that is, a fence is not, if you look
It's a
under the
permanent-
Webster's dictionary.
Permanent fixture.
Right, a fence is not a structure under that definition. We did look that up. The second one states, no shrubbery shall extend more than 3 feet above the ground, and any trees placed or maintained on said premises shall be trimmed so the lowest branch will not be less than 14 feet above ground when grown. I looked up once again online on the Webster's dictionary, and it indicated here shrubs are plants with woody stems. They may also be called bushes, especially if they have many branches. I also looked up grass. Grass-like plants look like grass, but have different characteristics that make them grass. So, like, examples of grass-like plants are rushes and sedges. I mean, that's the definition of a shrub. It does not include weeds. So if it doesn't have like the woody branches, stems that make it a shrub, it's not a shrub. I mean, that's the, like I said, the law is black and white. That's the definition of what a shrub is. Then it states, number 3, it states no fill-in material shall be used on said premises except earth, stone, brick, or broken concrete, and any fill placed hereon shall be leveled above the north curve of Perry Street and at its elevation on the date of this conveyance. Number 4, it states...
Wait a minute, there's more to that.
I'm reading directly.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
The
I'm
copy
reading
that I have.
word for word
Okay,
what it states here.
okay.
Number 4, it states the contour of the proposed new shoreline would be merged with the existing shoreline at the bathing beach at normal water level and would continue westward with the distance from the north curve of Perry Street to the water's edge, being held as nearly as possible to the distance now existing. The shoreline shall not be extended by artificial means beyond the shoreline existing on the first day of January 1957 when the water of Lake Erie is standing at 572.50 above mean sea level at New York. And in no event shall said shoreline be extended by artificial means beyond a line 400 feet from the center line of Perry Street as located January 1st, 1957. Number 5 states that there shall be no roadways or parking areas placed upon any part of said premises, nor shall any picnic benches, amusement devices, automobiles, or structures be placed thereon. And number 6 states the public bathing beach shall be restricted to the lands between the west line of Ash Street extended and the east line of Maple Street extended. So those are the restrictions. Now, if you have an older copy,
I have something that on number 3 that you read, that I said, and go on, it says, no fill-in material shall be used on said premises except earth, stone, brick, or broken concrete, and any fill placed with herein shall be leveled and covered with topsoil or sod.
okay, well this one states everything you indicated except it should say fill placed herein shall be leveled above north curb of Perry Street and its elevation on the date of this conveyance. If you have an older document, as new documents are created,
This is pretty old, it was from the courthouse.
so what we have also is from the courthouse. So I don't know why there's a discrepancy, but this is the current document, and this was used in 2009 when the property was transferred to the city. So this is on record as the current document. So I don't know why you have a different copy. It might have been an older copy, something might have been taken out.
One that was donated.
Okay. Well, this is the one that's used when it was given to the city of Port Clinton in a quick lane deed in 2009. So you go from oldest to newest, and the newest document replaces the older documents.
And voids out the agreement?
It didn't void out the agreement, it voided out one sentence in there that you indicated, because the agreement is in here. So you have one sentence of discrepancy. I don't know why, but we
it's
have
a
to
huge
follow.
sentence.
Well, we have to follow what's in here. Also, regarding to the fill, any type of fill material, in the environmental covenant, let me get there. So with regards to earth moving and land surface alterations, it says, except as may be necessary to implement the restoration of the property as defined by the scope of work to be performed under the project. It says, if no restoration of the property that requires earth moving or land surface alteration is approved as part of the immediate project, there shall be no ditching, draining, diking, filling, excavating, or removal or disturbance of topsoil, sand, gravel, rock, and other materials. All of the work that the city of Port Clinton did was at the request of the Army Corps of Engineers, and we were told that this needed to be done to move forward with the project. So these aren't decisions the city's making on its own. These are decisions that we are being told to do by the Army Corps of Engineers for a project that was entered into in 2015 that we have absolutely no control over. We are in the final stages. This has been going on for a very long time. We are there almost. It's my understanding from speaking with Mr. Colston, I also spoke with the gentleman from the Army Corps of Engineers. Do you remember when we had all the flooding on Perry Street?
Oh, yeah.
Well, everything the Army Corps of Engineers planted washed away.
We watched it.
Yeah, everything washed away, and then there was invasive carp inside of the wetlands.
We saw.
So basically, from that point forward, it literally washed away all of the work the Army Corps of Engineers did in order to move forward with the wetlands. So they had to start over, which is why this is taking longer than it probably should have been taking. But what needs to happen is the native grasses that they're planting, and we met with them and we said, please do not make them over 3 feet tall so there are no issues. Let's just try to keep stuff low to the ground. What needs to happen is these native grasses, they need to grow and they need to spread. So it makes a natural fence. That way, sand will not wash into the wetlands because they had to dig all the sand back out that they dug out the first time when the flooding came. The grass will stop the sand, just like a natural fence stops it. So, but that grass has to take root and it has to grow. They just finished planting all of those native grasses. They told us you have to put a fence up around the wetlands because no person, no animal, nobody can get in there because they cannot disturb what has already been cleaned out. Because let's say a bird flies over and comes in and drops an invasive species into the wetlands, we're right back where we started. So that's why that fence has to stay up. With regards to the grass, with regards to the sand, I know the sand piles up. I'm not sure about the mounds, which mounds you're talking about, but everything that they've asked us to do, we had to do, or else we would be in violation with the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers.
How long is that agreement in effect? When does the Army Corps of Engineers exit?
When the project's complete.
So it could be 3 more years if it washes
Well,
out again?
No, they're not gonna do
They are
that.
certain, I mean, they are
They-
certain
they want
that-
out.
Right, they want out. I think
Believe me,
it's
they
gone on
want
much longer than they expected.
So,
They are certain, they are telling us, they are certain that since these grasses are planted inside the fenced area and the fence is up, they are certain that as long as everything is left be, by springtime, they can come in and Fish and Wildlife will come in, the fence can come up, the grass can continue to grow on its own because it's just gonna be natural grass, so it's just gonna spread. It can continue to grow on its own, and then the weeds can get cleaned up. We cannot go into the wetlands to clean up weeds because we cannot trample on what they planted. We don't know, I don't know what a weed is and what their native grass is that they planted, but if that gets disturbed, it's just gonna push the timeline even further out. That's why they told Mr. Colson, leave everything be, do not touch anything until the spring. And then they can come in and they can see how much this native grass has grown. Get rid of the fence, and then Fish and Wildlife agreed to come in, clean up the weeds, pull out whatever is not supposed to be there, and then it will continue to grow naturally at that point. But until we get to that point, that fence has to stay up, or else it's just going to undo everything we did and we'll have to start over. The problem with this project is there is no out. There is no end date until they're complete. So we are at their mercy at this point to get it done. And we told them that we would follow through with every recommendation they made so this project could be completed so they can pull out. And they, right, Mr. Colson? And they said, okay, this is what we need to do. So I don't know who decided in 2015 that this was a good idea or not, but it's supposed to bring native birds. It's supposed to bring other native animals to the wetlands once it's complete. It's supposed to be a destination for birders. It's supposed to be, it is supposed to be a nice area. The problem is it looks like a hot mess, and it's going to until it's complete, and we're just trying to wait out till spring so they can come in and get rid of the fence. There's nothing we can do at this point. I know it's unsightly, but I mean, I walked over there and I was like, geez, what is going on over here? But we cannot touch it.
So what happens if it floods again next year? You start over again?
Well, right now we have the fence up.
It's not gonna stop the water.
That's not gonna hold back water, and the water's not the issue. The invasive carp are the issue. The plants, the sand coming in is the issue. They're telling us that fence is gonna be able to prevent any other issues. So, I mean, the wetlands have water inside of them, so we're not too concerned about the water. We don't want the invasive carp. We don't want the sand to just come in and push everything out. That's what we're being told. I mean, all we can do is go on what they tell us they need to do because at this point they're the experts in the project. We're not. We're just doing as they tell us to.
I get it. It just seems like you're fighting Mother Nature.
Well, and you know what? That has been a very frustrating topic of conversation for the Army Corps of Engineers and the city. Because you're right, we are fighting Mother Nature, and we just have to hope that this grass will grow, and then once the grass is up, they'll pull out, and everything should take, take its place in nature.
And they can keep the grass down?
Well, the grass that when we met with the Army Corps of Engineers, they indicated that grass grows out. It's not gonna grow up. So it's gonna be like, kind of like ground covering.
If we can have that under contract that that's gonna happen, we can back off, but
Well, the grass is already planted. It's already planted, and when we met with the Army Corps of Engineers, they indicated they would find grass that is gonna grow out instead of up.
Terry, we have a contract with Fish and Wildlife for 5 years. That takes effect as soon as the Army Corps pulls up.
And
So
they'll
that
maintain.
is a signed document that the city has on file, and that's a done deal. So as far as easing your mind when there's problems with that and I want to say mowing, but the invasive species and the weeds that get too high, that kind of stuff, yes, that will be taken care of with the contract with them. So that's a done deal. So I can tell you, look at you and tell you that that will happen. So I'm not too concerned with that part. The part is getting this to the finish line. That's the part, and as Dina said, that's where we have to. They've assured me that the plants come in, obviously water, a deluge like we had that time where it washes it all away. There's nothing anybody can do about that. But in general, there's gonna be water in there and it's gonna happen. The fence will stop some of the sand to get in there and that kind of stuff. So if I didn't have the Fish and Wildlife, I wouldn't sit here and tell you that, yeah, it's gonna be maintained. But I do have that and we have that signed, so no concern from my end.
I don't understand why they got into that. It says in this contract that evidently you don't have that, that if any action shall be commenced in any court or competent jurisdiction by the city of Port Clinton, the Board of County Commissioners, or Ottawa County, State of Ohio, in the United States, or any public or private corporation or entity having the power to eminent domain to appropriate said premises or any part thereof or interest thereof, then the title herein granted shall be void.
Well, eminent domain is when someone
Right.
takes land
And
without,
that sounds
without
like that's what the state did.
compensation. The state did not take land without compensation, because what they're doing is they're improving what's there to put it into a natural state, which is a wetlands. Right now, there's a huge push, and I don't know if Port Clinton was ahead of the curve or not, but right now there's a huge push by the state to have farmers stop farming farmland and turn that into wetlands. And then the state will pay whoever owns the land, they will pay them to help them construct the wetlands, and then they will help them maintain it, and they get funds for that. So there's a huge push right now to turn a lot of land into wetlands.
Is that why Port Clinton did that?
Well, this is a huge push now. I think Port Clinton was ahead of the curve on that one. But I don't know. I don't know who the administration was in 2015 who entered into this covenant. But it does not make the agreement void because it's not taking the land. Port Clinton owns the land. The city of Port Clinton, as of 2009, legally is the legal owner of the land in this quitclaim deed. So nobody's taking the land. What they're doing is there's an improvement on the land, which is a natural improvement. It's not a structure, it's not a building, it's not a highway. It's not something that's man-made. This is a natural wetlands habitat. So there's no taking involved. There was no eminent domain, there was no taking because the city owns the property. So
Okay,
the
but-
city is doing on its property what it is allowed to do, even under your covenants, because everything that's temporary is not violating your covenants. And the city is within its restrictions and is the owner of the property. Now, if the city wanted to build, I don't know, like a clubhouse or something there, that would be a violation, and that would be something that would void the agreement. This does not void the agreement. Everything is still in place, and the city is diligently trying to work to make sure we don't violate the environmental covenant, but also stay within this covenant. Everything right now is temporary, and what you're referring to is permanent. It's something that the city would do permanently.
It says ever. A lot of these, it says ever. They're not supposed to ever happen.
However, the city is the owner of the property, and the city is putting an improvement on the property, which is a natural improvement. Wetlands are natural. It's not a building, not a structure, not a shed. This
So
is
would
all
the
natural
pump-
and temporary. I'm
Was
sorry.
there
Pump station.
pump stations, would those have been considered a violation?
I was not there when those were put in,
I can answer that one. Those are in the right of way of the highway,
Oh.
so they don't violate.
so no, that would not violate that. So, I mean, this isn't done, you know, willy-nilly, it's not just done, I mean, this was all gone through by, there was a architectural company that came in when this wetlands took place to make sure that everything was done correctly. But ultimately, the city is the owner of the land. So when you own a piece of land, you can do, you know, what you would like to do on it as long as it doesn't violate any, you know, restrictions. Just like at your house, you can make additions to your property as long as it doesn't violate zoning or doesn't violate something else.
So your covenant voided all of this? Is that what you're saying?
No, I've said that more than one time. It has not voided anything because this, one, the city owns the property.
Right.
Two, the city is not violating anything in there because everything that's done is on a temporary basis. It will go away as soon as the project is complete. The ultimate project is what you have to look at to see if it violates the covenants, and the ultimate project is a wetlands, which is natural and it does not violate the restrictions. That's what we have. That's all we have right now. I mean,
Does the city have anything of what it's gonna look like or what it's supposed to look like when it's done?
they give you anything?
Never ending drawing.
No,
Never.
really.
No. No, I know that if you contact the Corps of Engineers, and there is a phone number that you're given, more with the customer service liaison, he could explain their vision of what they want to do. It's their vision, it's not the city's vision. It's a vision that is going to make this wetlands a successful wetlands. They asked us for input, we told them about the covenants, we told them about the restrictions, we said you have to stay within those. But what it's ultimately going to look like is their vision. They can explain it to you much better than we can because they haven't really given us a drawing or a sketch or anything like that. But Mr. Colson can share that phone number with you. And do you remember the gentleman's name?
We have it.
Oh.
They got all
We
that.
have it.
Oh, okay. You know,
Okay.
that's the person, if, you know, you want to give them a call and, you know, they'll give you, hopefully, they'll be able to show you something or explain to you what their vision is for what's going to go into the wetlands.
I did want to say, I wanted to thank Tracy, that you guys have done an excellent job of cleaning that beach, and what you've done downtown is great, and, you know,
Thank you.
it just is.
Nice
an
job on those
eyesore
rocks, by the
across-
Thank you.
Yes,
Getting rid of those rocks over there?
You mentioned that they were putting grass in so sand doesn't go into the pond.
Right.
Couldn't they use the same grass over the beach area so the sand doesn't go off
That's
the street?
exactly the phone call that I made, that we
Right.
talked
Good.
about
We're on
earlier.
the same page, good.
Right.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
So they were trying very hard to make that natural fence,
Yeah.
so the other fence could go away. That's their whole goal. And do I know what kind of grass they're using? They didn't really tell us. We just told them it can't be over 3 feet
Green.
tall because we don't want to hear, right.
And I'll close
Because we
with,
don't want to hear anything about that.
It's crap
And they
grass.
said, well, I hope not.
I
And
hope
they
I-
said, okay.
I hope by next spring, late spring, that everybody will be happy with what it looks
Right.
like.
Good.
That's where I'm at with it from my end, so.
And then everybody be upset about the roads being all torn
Yeah,
up.
it'll be tore up, so it'll be on to the next subject.
And
But no, thank
unfortunately,
you.
the wetlands is something that we just have to finish and be done with, and hopefully they will prosper once it's done. So we do apologize for the ridiculous amount of time that it's taking, but Mother Nature did not like us when it flooded Perry Street, and that did set us back. So hopefully we can move forward, get it done.
I didn't like her either.
Yeah. So that's all we know. Unfortunately, we don't know anymore. But if you'd like to share with what you have, I can compare it to what we have, and we can look at it. But
The document?
yeah. But all I can go off of is what's reported, and this is the most current document reported. So.
I
so
did
if we go to the courthouse, we can get a copy of that document, correct?
Yes.
And what exactly do we ask?
So what you need to do is you need to go to the auditors, Ottawa County auditors, and unfortunately it says City of Port Clinton, 0 Perry Street. I can share the parcel number with you at the recorder's office. They look by seller or buyer. So you're gonna wanna indicate City of Port Clinton as the buyer, even though it's $0, it's still, they're still the buyer. And you wanna indicate, then they're gonna say, well, we have a lot of properties with City of Port Clinton, then you wanna go a step further and indicate 0 Perry Street. If that's not located, then you wanna go a step further with the parcel number.
Okay.
And you wanna ask for the deed. Okay, you have it on there? Okay, you wanna ask for the deed. The current deed that was, oh, do you have this?
Kelly.
Oh, okay, you know what, I have that. You wanna ask for the current deed that's on record for that property. And that would be what was recorded, as part of the transfer on October 23rd, 2009. I just have, right now, I mean, I just have, just a quick claim deed, but they're,
Don't you have the
So
volume page
what
in
about
there?
the other pages that you were referring back to that you said is current?
that should be recorded in there.
Is that part of that?
It should be, this is what I have, but I've received all this in just one big chunk, and so
Okay.
I've
That's what I.
separating things out to be able to refer to them. But the covenants, restrictions should all be recorded as part of, it should continue. I don't know why part of it was not in there, that one sentence, but this is what the
Big
current.
sentence, leveled.
Well, no, that part's in there. I read the same section you did. It's just that last grass or sod.
Right.
Other than that, it was word for word, up until where it said grass or sod, should be filled with grass or sod.
Right.
I mean, so it's, yeah, I'm not sure, but this points back to 1961 on here as well. So I could take a look at this and see, but I'm not sure why. This is 2015. Yeah, I mean,
Madam President,
Yes.
I don't know if it's helpful, but someone was asking what the Army Corps says it will look like now. I just did a quick search. There is a program page, a PDF dated 2022 of September, so just last month. I searched USACE, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, USACE Port Clinton Wetlands, and it's the first result. It's a three-page PDF. It has some overhead shots. It also shows the budget that's gone into the project and anticipated outcomes and improvements to the ecosystem there. So that might be helpful as well. I have not read it all, so I hope it aligns with what we've all discussed here.
so that
Sure.
might be a good way to start, and then follow-up questions with the gentleman's information that you
What
have.
did you say again? US?
ACE, Army Corps of Engineers, USACE Port Clinton Wetlands. And that was their first result on my phone. And there is a gentleman's contact name,
Russ.
number. Yeah,
Russ Brandenburg,
yeah.
they've got his number.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
Dave Bueller, 910 East Perry.
Yeah, I just got the one question, and since you brought the Phragmites down to our house now, I talked to Russ, and he said as soon as they pull out, it's gonna be Port Clinton's responsibility to treat for the Phragmites.
That's
Is that
what-
in a budget anywhere?
Fish and Wildlife,
For 5 years, what after
Yes.
that?
we haven't got that far, I'll be honest.
Well,
I get what you're
I'm planning on
asking.
owning the house longer than 5 years. I would like
Understand
to
that.
make sure that, because those made it nasty.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible. So yes, that's in the, positively come out a couple times a year. And I'll be able to answer your question after we get the first, basically spray on it, I guess I'll say. Because I'm working with a guy named Jason Lewis from Fish and Wildlife.
They just did it like a month ago, right?
Yeah,
Because I can see, I mean, you can see
can
what it
see it.
killed, and you can see where it killed it in front of my house, so.
absolutely. The
So I
invasive
know they've
species.
made it down in less than a year, they're down there.
And
And they
that-
weren't there before this got dug up, so.
Correct.
So, I mean, to answer your question, I'd like to see it just bulldozed over, but we'll see where we go.
Right.
So.
Madam President, if I may, if you pull up that section on Google, below it, it says U.S. Army Corps of Engineers awards contract for the Port Clinton Ecosystem Restoration Project. So you could definitely take a look at that to see what was involved in the contract.
Oh, back in
began,
2008.
yeah, which is when the city got the contract. So you can take a look at that article as well, it might be helpful. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. We'll move on to executive officers' reports. First, I'd like to announce for the November 8th meeting, since it is election day, we are going to move the meeting to Wednesday, November 9th at 6 p.m. And then in the December meeting, the last meeting of the year, December 27th, we will be moving that meeting to December 20th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Council, there's a new ordinance and a new resolution, ordinance 34-22. It's my understanding that finance has already discussed this. The administration has asked that it be passed on its first reading due to the fact it's time sensitive. Then there's resolution 22-7. I think that might have been discussed in general at a couple of committee meetings. When we get to that point, Mr. Belo said he would explain a little more about that, but administration has asked that that be passed on its first reading also due to time sensitive nature and the risk of causing further damage, I guess you'd say. On our second reading, we have ordinance 33-22. That was previously assigned to safety services. They have discussed that that is time sensitive and that the administration and the chief have asked that it be passed on its second reading. And that is all I have this evening. Move on to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. Folks, thanks for coming out tonight. I've said this the last two meetings, but I want to emphasize it again, just the Halloween activities going on in the community. Tomorrow night from 6 to 7:30 at the high school will be the Spooktacular. Normally, again, it's inside the school. However, it will be outside in the bus turnaround between the middle school and the high school. If anyone is interested in donating candy, you still have that opportunity. Call the school, the high school, 734-2147, 734-2147. On Saturday, the 29th, from 1 to 4 in downtown will be the Chamber of Commerce Main Street Trunk or Treat. Downtown, basically the same block of Mom, will be blocked off early in the morning and then opened up once Trunk or Treat is done. Again, interested in donating candy, contact, or getting more information on that, contact the Chamber of Commerce at 734-5503, 734-5503. And then the granddaddy of them all on Monday the 31st is the neighborhood trick or treat. That'll run from 6 to 8 p.m. on Monday. So turn on your porch lights and go from there. Next Monday, leaf pickup will take place. Now, one of the common questions that Tracy and I get is, when are you going to pick up leaves? And the answer is when they start falling. They've started falling. There's still a lot of green trees out there, but they'll start and continue until when they're going to stop picking up, when they stop falling. Usually after Thanksgiving, but we'll go. Just ask that you rake them to the curb, not on the street. If you rake them out onto the street, rain washes them into the gutters and causes some other issues. And a note from the fire chief, and I say this every year, please don't park your vehicle on top of a pile of leaves. We lose one car every year in the town because they park their car on top of dry leaves. Any veterans in the room, or if you could spread the word, November 11th, Veterans Day at the Jet Express from 11 until 2 will be a free breakfast for veterans and their families.
Free lunch.
Free lunch, rather. Breakfast and their families, veterans and their families. That's sponsored by the Ottawa County Veterans Administration, Crown Battery, and Bistro 163. That will again take place at the Jet Express in their terminal. Park in the Jet Express parking lot 11 to 2 on Veterans Day. That next day, if you're looking for something to do, the Port Clinton Firefighters Association Feather Party is on Saturday the 12th of November. Doors open at 6. It's a free family event, gambling on poultry and other assorted things. There is a raffle, $1 each, 6 for $5, for fabulous prizes. I have those raffle tickets if anyone is interested. This is under the category of no good deed goes unpunished. Last week at a supervisors meeting, it was announced that the restrooms at Lakeview Park were going to close last week. And I said, hey, look at the weather forecast. It's supposed to be beautiful this weekend, which it was. So they kept the restrooms open an extra week. And someone decided to pull a urinal off the wall in the men's room. So the restrooms are closed for the season. Police are looking at the video cameras to see if we can possibly identify whomever did that. But they were going to close anyway. People are already pointing and accusing. The restrooms are going to close anyways this week, but that just sealed the deal there. Back on October 20th, Mr. Colston, representatives from ODOT, the contractor, the general manager, as well as Eric Peterson, took a final walkthrough of the new walkway at Jefferson Street. everything checked off. We're working with the Chamber of Commerce to have a ribbon cutting sometime in the spring, probably in conjunction with the restroom facility that's being built at Waterworks Park. So we'll have a dueling ribbon cuttings there. I want to thank, and I'm going to butcher their last name, Bailey and Lee, and Mrs. Ostheimer, if you can help me out here. Is it Sambertoni?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sounds good.
sounds good enough. They live on Harrison Street and have donated the Christmas tree that'll go at Madison and Perry. Not only are Bailey and Lee new to our community, they moved in 2020, but they're also newlyweds. The tree will be up and lit just in time for the Sip and Shop on November 16th in downtown. Oh, I'm sorry, 19th. I was looking at the 6th. At 6 p.m., November 19th, at 6 p.m., we'll have the tree lighting ceremony at Madison and Perry. So please come on down for that. That's not to be confused with December 3rd's activities when Santa Claus comes to town and there's the parade and then the tree lighting over at Adams Street Park. So again, the 19th, the tree will be up and lit. 6 o'clock is that tree lighting. More details to come on December 3rd. Also, because we're in the holiday spirit so early around here, and due to manpower issues, it is hunting season after all. Folks are going to be out in the fields. Look for Christmas decorations to start going up early, like later this week, perhaps. Even next week, weather permitting. There's something else I was going to say about Christmas trees and all that. Oh yes, with the Christmas trees. This particular tree is a little bit larger than we've had in the past. So if anyone is interested in assisting the city in getting additional Christmas lights, please make checks payable to the City of Port Clinton. The memo of the check put Christmas tree lights, drop it off the city, mail it to the city. If you have extra lights, we'll be happy to take them. We'll put them in other places of town, but there's a specific light style that goes on the big tree to keep it uniform. And then finally, last evening I had the, I don't know if it's distinct pleasure or whatnot, but I paid up on my bet that I had with the mayor of Oak Harbor, Quentin Babcock. Unfortunately, our Redskins played a heck of a game. I still say, for those of you that were at the game or have seen, he was down. If you saw it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Their guy ran back a kickoff at the end of the first half, but he was down. I had a good time with their coaches and their players. You know, the bet was I provided pizza for the senior football players, senior cheerleaders, coaches, and advisors, and I had to wear those colors. I have no green in my wardrobe, so the football coach tossed me a football jersey. You'll see a picture of that probably in the Beacon later this week. It was about 8 sizes too small. And he said, just hold on to it for next year. So, yeah. So the smack talk has already started. Although our boys weren't, I should say boys and girls because there is a female kicker on the team, weren't successful Friday night, they did make the playoffs, if you hadn't heard. They'll be playing at Liberty Center Friday night. You can get the tickets online only, and it's ohsaa.org/tickets. ohsaa.org/tickets. Click on football. We're Division 5, Region 18. Look for Port Clinton and go on and da-da-da-da-da. So hope to see you in Liberty Center. Go Redskins. Beat everybody. Madam President, unless anyone has any questions, that is my report for this evening.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for the mayor? Okay, we'll move on to auditor's report. Mr. Velo.
Thank you, Madam President. The council, at the last council meeting, you received the September financial statement from the auditor's office. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but since time has passed, I can tell you that income tax is up further than it was in the table I provided. It's surpassed $2.6 million, which is up, I believe, even beyond all of last year's revenue combined, but I'll have to double check. Treasurer's not here. I know everybody loves that tax number, so I'll give that to you if you don't mind.
You might guess.
It's $288,000. Who's writing down? Everybody's writing down. Beth's writing down. Yeah. Mrs. Gilman's writing down. $288,541.20. Dock tax is $20,000. $780. No cents. Parking tickets is $6,195 if you're interested as well. American Rescue Plan funds the city will carry over into next year north of $300,000. We still have time to expend that, so I just wanted to provide an update there. It was on the September month-end report, but I just thought I'd discuss it here. happy to answer any questions that you have about that. Seeing none, coming up to the end of the year, council will ask you to pass two pieces of legislation. One is a temporary budget to cover what is typically the first quarter of the next fiscal year, so January, February, and March of 2023. At the next council meeting, which is now November 9th, I'll have that for the first reading for you, and happy to take any questions that may change, or we may come to you with some requests for amendments before the end of the third reading for a final passage, so that there's no risk of not being able to operate come January 1st or January 2nd, 2023. The second piece of legislation will be the year-end budget adjustments to make sure the appropriation lines are in line with what expenditures were. That's something that's typically done, presented to you at the very last council meeting of the year. With it being December 20th, our office will be able to provide whatever you all need to pass, and we'll present that to you in two meetings, so that will be upon its third meeting, with an understanding that there may be some last-minute adjustments at the last one, but at least there'll be no risk of potential absences, inability to pass that before the end of the year. We have a deadline for that, so I thank you for your consideration and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for Mr. Bealow? Okay. We'll move on to supervisors' reports. Chief Scott?
I have nothing, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Golston?
Just one thing, just a reminder that the sewer deduct meters need to be turned in by Monday, the 31st. You can call in the reading, but it has to be in Monday to get credit for your sewer deduct. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that if any of your constituents ask. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for Mr. Golston this evening? Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Finance, Ms. Hovis?
Nothing tonight, Madam President.
Thank you. Environment and Public Works, Mrs. Hickman.
Nothing tonight, Madam President, thank you.
Safety Services, Ms. Phillips.
Thank you, Madam President. We're caught up.
Good. Economic and Community Development, Ms. Lynn.
Nothing tonight, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Under correspondence this evening, we have financial report for September 30th, 2022, provided by Mr. Bealow. Planning Commission minutes of September 22, 2022. Architectural Review Board meeting minutes from September 22, 2022. Safety and Services Committee meeting minutes from October 11th, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve the correspondence as stated?
Motion to approve all correspondence as stated.
Thank you, Mr. Troy. Do you have a second?
I'm second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Troy, seconded by Mrs. Hickman to approve the correspondence as stated. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to readings of ordinances and resolutions. Under third readings, would the clerk please read by title and summary only, ordinance 29-22.
Ordinance number 29-22, special purpose flood damage reduction ordinance for the city of Port Clinton, Ohio.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 29-22 this evening?
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Troy.
motion to adopt ordinance 29-22.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? We have a motion by Mr. Troy, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to adopt ordinance 29-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roseanne Hickman,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Kelly Gangle,
Yes.
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Richard Morgan.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Ordinance 29-22 is hereby adopted. Would the clerk please read by title and summary only, ordinance 30-22.
Ordinance number 30-22, an ordinance amending section 717.03 of chapter 717 of the Port Clinton Codified Ordinance regulating peddlers and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 30-22 this evening?
Madam President, I move to adopt ordinance 3622.
Emergency clause.
Madam
Oh,
President,
emergency
I make
clause,
motion
right.
to
I can't
retain the
hear.
emergency clause.
And
Okay.
ordinance 30-22, please.
Okay, thanks.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Trolley, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to retain the emergency clause as to ordinance 30-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes,
Kelly Gangle,
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The emergency clause is hereby retained. Does council wish to take any further action as to ordinance
Madam President.
30-22?
we met, we met about this the last time, and this was rewritten to make sure that we have people who are beneficial to the city when they come in with their products and such, so that we don't have felons running around with no protection. And we can have the safety service director explain it if you need any more than that.
Law director.
Law director.
That's not me.
That's it. I don't think he did.
If anyone has any questions specifically, but the general premise of the ordinance is that if you want to go door to door selling items, you would need to fill out an application with the auditor's office. You would need to fill out an application with the tax department and make sure that your earnings are taxed. And the big change is that you need to have a background check, an FBI, BCI background check. A lot of people who come into the city to sell items are not only from outside of the city of Port Clinton, but a lot of them are from out of state. So the FBI, BCI background check would cover all of that. We do not want anyone knocking on doors and going into the home of residents of the city who have felonies. You know, there's dangerous felonies, not dangerous felonies, sex offense felonies, but they're all felonies. So if you have a felony of any sort that is still on your record, you will not be issued a permit with the city.
Ms. Schenker, does this cover basement, waterproofing salesman, roofing salesman?
Yes,
Okay.
it covers
Okay.
everybody, unless you're a local business inside of the city limits that does the background checks as part of their yearly employment for their employers, or I'm sorry, their employees. This would cover any business that is outside of the
Let me
city.
take this one step farther. Okay, somebody comes to my door can we ask them, have you been
You just want to
approved
ask
through the
them,
city?
you just have to ask them if they have the permit, if they
Permit
obtained the
from the city.
permit. And they can tell you either, yes, I have, you know, I wouldn't understand why they wouldn't carry that with them.
Right.
Just in case someone does ask, they can say, yes, I have, no, I don't. Or, you know, we're a business inside the city limits that does the regular background checks, and therefore we would not have to do a second background check. So it's,
Thank you.
I have a question. So if say some 21-year-old person does something bad, convicted of a felony, they serve 3-4 years, whatever, that means for the rest of their life they can never do this?
well, some felonies they can be expunged. So what the person would need to do is, if they have one of the felonies that's on the list of felonies that can be expunged, it means it would not show up on a background check. They would need to go to the court that they received the felony in, and they would need to apply to have that sealed and or expunged. So if it's done, it wouldn't show up on a background check. There are some felonies that can never be sealed and or expunged, so it just depends what type of felony they have. And they also have to be in good compliance, so a lot of the courts would say, you know, you need so many, for example, your case with the prison, you would need so many years after you get out of prison of, you know, no similar offenses, good behavior, things like that. So they would have to jump through the hoops that the court that sentenced them imposed. Then that conviction would be taken off their record as far as for background checks, and they would be able to get a peddler's permit. But that's something that's on them to do prior to applying.
All right, thank you.
So who's reviewing background checks?
Well, the police department would conduct the background check if they go through the city of Port Clinton. The sheriff's office also can conduct background checks. That's all given to the auditor's office.
So the auditor reviews it.
Well, yeah, they would go through and see if there's any felonies on there.
So what's the, for like misdemeanors, what is, so if someone has a misdemeanor on there, what happens then?
If you have any type of a sex offense, which could be a misdemeanor,
Sure.
they would be excluded as well. The
So-
sex offenses are listed here.
So I think my kind of issue with this, when I previously asked some questions on it, is like with our taxi cab ordinance, we have some very specific guidelines of like no violent felonies, no different things. We could have like a public disturbance misdemeanor or something, you know, of that nature, that I wouldn't want someone who was kind of raising hell in the city to come knock on my door, but I really don't care if someone with a non-violent felony comes knocks on my door. I actually don't know who has a felony and who doesn't, who comes knocks on my door. And I feel like if we have some well-defined guidelines for our people that we have to get in cars with, like why are we making such a blanket, like inconsistent language for another ordinance? I know nobody wants anybody to come sell anything at their house door to door. I usually don't even answer, but it just feels inconsistent and just kind of like a blanketed approach.
So the taxi cab ordinance is pretty identical to the peddler's ordinance. The peddler's ordinance is actually more broad because it states no felonies at all.
Yeah, I understand that. That's why I brought up why, you know, we wouldn't follow the same language as the taxi cab.
So you would want people with felonies to go to the house as long as they're not violent?
Felonies is a pretty broad statement, and it causes a disparate impact on.
Well, for example, you gave, in the email, you gave a example of someone who was convicted of a drug felony.
Yeah.
So let's say they were convicted of a drug felony, they did their, whatever their sentence was, whether probation, community control, or they went to prison. The concern is we can't guarantee that they're fine.
You can't guarantee anyone's fine.
No, but if they have a felony for a drug offense, that it's either up to them to get that expunged and sealed, or it's out there, and if it's out there, the question is, well, what if they're using again? What if they go into the house and they ask to use the bathroom and steal all the medicine out of the medicine cabinet that's prescription medication? What if they steal from the home? What if they do something that would not necessarily violent, but it commit a theft offense against either the owners or steal some of their property? And that is why it's more broad, because it says felonies. I mean, if you have a nonviolent drug felony and you don't want to be judged on it by, you know, a city that says no felonies, somebody can just get that expunged or sealed. It doesn't take that much. That's also for jobs. I mean, if you apply for a job and you have a felony, you know, if they do a background check, they're going to probably, you know, have the same conversation.
In my profession, I actually do review background checks, and if there's a nonviolent drug felony, I have no issue with someone who is reformed in hiring them.
Well, the city can't take that liability. We do not know if someone's reformed or not. This is somebody going door to door unsupervised. They're not in a job setting where there's a supervisor supervising them. They are merely going out. Now, just to let you know, prior to putting the background check in, there was nothing. So it was basically on someone's good word. So that's what is stated from 1955.
And I'm not anti-background check.
Right. The
It just
specifics.
feels like a pretty harsh thing without some specific guidelines.
Well, if you could point out to the specific guidelines in the taxi cabs, I know there are specific guidelines with regards to driving, but peddlers do not have to drive. They could walk door to door. So we would not put anything in there with regards to like an OVI conviction or things like that. That was pretty specific.
Sure.
I just don't know how much more, you want us to make it more narrow?
No, I think in the taxi cab language that I sent you, it specifically talks about the types of felonies that cannot be convicted with. And this isn't, like I said, I'm not a fan of peddlers coming to my house anyway. It feels inconsistent and very blanketed. That's why I just like,
Well,
why wouldn't we be consistent?
I guess if you're getting in someone's car to get a ride from point A to point B, that's a little different than going into someone's home.
Are they coming inside people's homes?
They would if they're selling like a vacuum and they say, let me show you how to demonstrate, or windows, let me take a look at your window. A lot of times they do go inside the home. That's why we need more protections than, for example, if you're getting a ride from point A to point B. We could make the taxi cab ordinance more, so it says all felonies, but when somebody is coming into a home, it doesn't sit right for the city to allow some felons and not other felons. We should not allow any felons, period, to go into someone's
It's a very
home.
blanketed statement. You can get a felony for taxes, you can get a felony for gambling and
Right,
playing an
and you
illegal
could
bingo game. But
potentially-
it's a very like blanketed statement.
It is,
and it's a point of privilege to come and say like, oh no, all felons are so bad, like doesn't matter what they did. Nobody wants anybody to be put in danger, but I think it's good to recognize too, I guess, you know, the point of privilege that it's coming from to have such a blanketed statement.
Well, it's not necessarily privileged, because anyone who has a felony that's not on the list of ones that cannot conceal or expunge can do that.
That's a very layered thing to talk about that we don't have to get into, but it is.
Any court will tell,
Sure.
tell a person after a certain amount of time, here's the process to do that. That's their prerogative, that's their right, but, you know, representing the city, and speaking with the police department, Chief Scott is here, you know, the police department, the city does not feel comfortable with having anyone with any type of felony go into the home where the city is giving them their blessing to go into the home. Because that permit is essentially the city giving them permission, their blessing to go in someone's home.
Is that what it states?
Well, permit, we're telling them they can go in the home.
They can go in the home.
That's
They
what-
can go to their door. They're not saying you can go
They
in
can,
the
I
home.
think what she's trying to say is they can be invited in the home.
I understand.
You're
No,
not
I
gonna do
understand.
it.
Right.
But
And then
I'm not gonna sit
I
here and
don't-
say the permit is to let someone
Right.
in someone else's
Well,
home.
if the person-
Anyone can come knock on your door.
And you don't have to let them in, but the person comes in and says, hi, I'm selling a vacuum, I'd like to show you how it works, and they ask a simple question, well, do you have a right to be here? And they say, well, the city gave me a permit, so can I come in your home and show you how this vacuum works?
And we've had instances in the past where people selling vacuums have been in houses and don't want to take no for an answer, to the point where they've called the police, and we've responded and found people.
And they were all felons?
Where I'm going with it, we found people in homes selling vacuums to people that have had active warrants, and arrested them, you know, for the active warrants while they're in people's houses trying to sell them stuff.
Sure.
Not saying it was a felony warrant or anything like that, but
You know, I understand what you're saying, and I understand the purpose of this. And maybe it's the
presentation is just, if you're gonna present it in a way that the city is giving you a permit to go into someone's home, and now like, you know,
I don't like
we're
the fact
letting
that
felons go in.
you're convicted of felon, you serve your time. It seems like once you serve your time, you should be a regular citizen again. I understand what you're saying, to protect the people, I understand that. I do understand that.
I guess my point is, if you want to be a regular citizen and you don't want that to show up on your background check, then you could take action to
Understood.
stop that
I
from
do
happening.
understand that, Dina. I'm sorry to prolong this.
No, I mean, it's the law, and our goal, and this was requested by the police department and by the auditor's office, so these permits can be issued properly. The goal is to protect the citizens.
And how did the citizens know the permits from the city? Like, is it?
It's a big yellow, it's a big permit.
I mean, it's not so I could just print out, take a picture of it, and print out on my
I
computer.
can't imagine that anyone would know.
I believe that, aren't
no,
they
I'm just-
required to carry it when they're going door to door?
I would think.
Because I never ask,
Point,
people come to my door all the time, drives me absolutely crazy. I don't open the door, I try to hide from them. And I would never, I wouldn't even, I know Margaret asked, do you have a permit, and calls all the time. I wouldn't even think to ask that, but again, I'm not even letting them sell me.
And this is
Or the
someone,
Girl Scout cookies.
right, this is, Girl Scout cookies is not the
I know
same.
that's different, I know it's
Right.
different, but I'm saying those who know people.
It's a business who's coming to sell for profit. A lot of these businesses, it would have to be an out-of-town business. I'm sorry, Ms. Gangle, if you want to distinguish between nonviolent felons and violent felons, but a felon is a felon. And if somebody wants to take that off their background check, they can.
why
The city
doesn't-
can't be the ones who sit there and distinguish, oh, well, they have a drug felony, so they're okay. Or, oh, no, they have a felonious assault, they're not okay. Or they have something in between, they have a felony OVI, oh, well, maybe they're okay, I don't know, it depends if they're drinking that day. So it's one of those things where the city we can't put that on the auditor's office to distinguish which felony is a bad felony and which one is not. But when it comes to the residents, their safety is the city's top priority.
One more question. This doesn't apply to Girl Scout cookies or football players selling. And I'm not saying it should, but how do we differentiate? Is it because they're charity?
That's all laid out in the ordinance.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's a
Okay,
different.
I'm sorry. All
It
right.
is different. I shouldn't have thrown in the cookies. Those are just the people I answer the door to.
Right, understood.
Mr. Belo, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to clarify, and correct me if I'm wrong, a permit issued by this office, the auditor's office, does not confer additional protections or liabilities backwards to the city just by issuing a permit, just like it wouldn't with the taxi cab. So individuals would still be responsible for any actions that may be taken. And speaking for me, because I used to sit where you were, Ms. Gangle, I shared some of your concerns, but when it's narrowly tailored to this subset of the economy, one that I think most people don't care too much for or is bothered by it, I would care more if it was broader, like to street vendors downtown or to the Walleye Festival and like that. So that's why.
Well, I think it's worth to beg the question, if we're gonna make it an ordinance for the city and make it a law, we need to have this discussion. So, regardless of the impact or not.
Yeah, that's what this portion of it is. And it's been at committee too. I mean, safety services have discussed it also.
Yes, my committee met and we voted 3-0 that we thought that this was written in a way that we all could live with.
Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance?
Yes, Madam President, we would, I would recommend the adoption of this.
Okay, do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any further discussion? I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to adopt ordinance 30-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Jerry Trolley?
Yes.
Kelly Gagel? No. Pat Hovis?
Yes.
Beth Gilman?
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman?
Yes.
Richard Morgan?
Yes.
Margaret Phillips?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 6-1. Ordinance 30-22 is hereby adopted. Would the clerk please read by title and summary only, ordinance 31-22.
Ordinance number 31-22, an ordinance revising and fixing the salaries of certain supervisory positions classified as non-exempt employees of the city of Port Clinton, Ohio, not covered by a collective bargaining agreement, and replacing any previous ordinances referencing salaries for certain non-exempt employees and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 31-22?
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Trolley.
make a motion to retain the emergency clause.
Thank you.
Ordinance 31-22.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? I have a motion by Mr. Trolley, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to retain the emergency clause as to ordinance 31-22. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Pat Hovis?
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman?
Yes.
Jerry Trolley?
Yes.
Margaret Phillips?
Yes.
Kelly Gagel?
Yes.
Beth Gilman?
Yes.
Richard Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The emergency clause is hereby retained. Does council wish to take any further action as to ordinance 31-22?
Madam President,
Mr.
make a
Trolley.
motion to adopt ordinance 31-22.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I have a motion by Mr. Trolley, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to adopt ordinance 31-22. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Kelly Gagel?
Yes.
Pat Hovis?
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman?
Yes.
Margaret Phillips?
Yes.
Richard Morgan?
Yes.
Beth Gilman?
Yes.
Jerry Trolley?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Ordinance 31-22 is hereby adopted. Will the clerk please read by title and summary only ordinance 32-22.
Ordinance number 32-22, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Safety and Service to enter into an agreement with the United States Army Corps of Engineers, USACE, for the construction of the Port Clinton water and sanitary sewer replacement, USACE Section 594 project, the project, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 32-22?
Madam President,
Mr.
I
Troy.
make a motion to retain emergency clause in ordinance 3222.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Troy, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to retain the emergency clause as to ordinance 32-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roseanne Hickman,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Kelly Gangle.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The emergency clause is hereby retained. Does council wish to take any further action as to ordinance 32-22?
Madam President,
Mr.
I make a
Troy.
motion to adopt ordinance 3222.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Trolley, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to adopt ordinance 32-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Kelly Gangle,
Yes.
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Pat Hovis.
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley.
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Ordinance 32-22 is hereby adopted. Move on to second readings. Would the clerk please read by title and summary only, ordinance 33-22.
Ordinance number 33-22, an ordinance amending section 5.01 of the Civil Service Commission of the City of Port Clinton, Ohio Rules and Regulations, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 33-22?
Madam President, Safety and Service also met and voted 3-0 to pass this on the second reading rather than waiting until the third, which would require a wait. But I would like the chief to explain first why we're changing the civil service time first.
The civil service law now says that we cannot hire anybody on the police department for an initial role when they're over the age of 35. We've been having a lot of trouble hiring people, so we went to a lateral transfer where they start in, when they start with the police department, they get credit for years of service at other departments and start at a higher pay scale. With getting experienced people, a lot of times you're getting people that are over the age limit, so we're wanting to get rid of the age limit in order to open up the pool for hiring.
Thank you.
And if I could, they still have to pass other evaluations, physical.
Yeah, they would still
mental.
have to pass the physical agility test and the psych exam, and the only thing that would change would be the age requirements.
And also, if I may just add, this would also go for new hires who would take the test, the civil service test. We had two tests prior. We had to actually eliminate, I think four individuals who scored very well and scored high on the civil service test, but they had to be disqualified because they were over the age of 35. So had we had this in place prior, those individuals would have been interviewed and would have had to go through the rest of the steps, but one of them could have been hired. But now they moved on, so we have to move on also.
In the last test that we did give, we had only one person apply for it, so it wasn't even competitive. A lot of other agencies, there's a shortage of police officers now. Not too many people want to become police officers anymore, and what's happening is all the agencies around are raising their wages, so everybody's stealing from everybody, and you're taking a certain amount of people that everybody wants, so they're doing everything they can to.
And then also the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office and other sheriff's office, they do not follow the civil rules, so they are outside of that process. So they do not have any age requirements. They do not have to go through like the same physical agility tests that, like for example, Port Clinton police officers have to go through. So their standards are different. So a lot of police agencies are trying to mirror at least the age requirement to raise it or eliminate it so they can be competitive with offices like the sheriff's office. And then, as Chief Scott said, other police departments who are offering more money.
Ms. Count, anybody else have any questions? Okay, does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 33-22?
Madam President,
Yes,
I move to waive the third reading and pass on second.
thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Pinkman. Any further discussion? Okay. I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to waive the 3 required readings as to ordinance 33-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman,
Yes.
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Kelly Gagel.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The 3 required readings are hereby waived. Does council wish to take any further action as to ordinance 33-22?
Madam President,
Ms.
I move to retain the emergency clause.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Troll. Any discussion? Okay. I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Trolley, to retain the emergency clause as to ordinance 33-22. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Kelly Gagel,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The emergency clause is hereby retained.
Madam President, I move to adopt.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hickman. Any discussion? I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. Hickman, to adopt ordinance 33-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Kelly Gagel,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Ordinance 33-22 is hereby adopted. We move on to the first readings. Would the clerk please read by title and summary only ordinance 34-22?
Ordinance 34-22, an ordinance accepting all current and future grant money awarded to the Port Clinton Fire Department from the Ohio Department of Public Safety, Ohio First Responder Recruitment, Retention, and Resilience Program, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to ordinance 34-22?
Madam President, I move to waive the 3 required readings as to
Thank
34-22.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Trolley. Do I have any discussion? I have a motion by Mrs. Hovis, seconded by Mr. Trolley, to waive the 3 required readings as to ordinance 34-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman,
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Kelly Gagel.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The 3 required readings are hereby waived. Does council wish to take any further action as to ordinance 34-22?
Madam President, I move we retain the emergency clause in ordinance 34-22.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Trolley. Any discussion? We have a motion by Ms. Hovis, seconded by Mr. Trolley, to retain the emergency clause as to ordinance 34-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roseanne Hickman,
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Kelly Gagel,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Beth Gilman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The emergency clause is hereby retained. Does council wish to take any further action as to ordinance 34-22?
Madam President, I move that we adopt ordinance 34-22.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I have a motion by Ms. Hovis, seconded by Mr. Trolley, to adopt ordinance 34-22. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley,
Yes.
Kelly Gagel,
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman,
Yes.
Pat Hovis.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Ordinance 34-22 is hereby adopted. Would the clerk please read by title and summary only, resolution 22-7?
Resolution number 22-7, a resolution supporting the Port Clinton Revolving Loan Fund Board's recommendation to approve a loan from the Port Clinton Revolving Loan Fund Program to State and Lincoln LLC in the amount of $6,688 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to resolution 22-7?
Madam President, I move we waive the 3 required readings for resolution 22-7.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Joel. Any discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Gilman, seconded by Mr. Trolley, to waive the 3 required readings as to resolution 22-7. The clerk, please call the roll.
Margaret Phillips?
Yes.
Kelly Gangle?
Yes.
Richard Morgan?
Yes.
Pat Hovis?
Yes.
Jerry Trolley? Roseanne Hickman?
Yeah,
Beth Gilman?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The 3 required readings are hereby waived. Does council wish to take any further action as to ordinance 22-7?
Madam President,
Yes, Ms.
I move we retain the emergency clause for resolution 22-7.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Any discussion? I have a motion by Mrs. Gilman, seconded by Mr. Trolley, to retain the emergency clauses to resolution 22-7. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Pat Hovis?
Yes.
Kelly Gangle?
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman?
yes,
Beth Gilman?
Yes.
Margaret Phillips?
Yes.
Jerry Trolley?
Yes.
Richard Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. The emergency clauses to resolution 22-7 is hereby retained. Does council wish to take any further action as to ordinance as to resolution 22-7?
Madam President,
Yes, Mrs.
I
Gilman.
move we adopt resolution 22-7.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I have a motion by Mrs. Gilman, seconded by Mr. Trolley, to adopt resolution 22-7. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Kelly Gangle?
Yes.
Pat Hovis?
Yes.
Beth Gilman?
Yes.
Roseanne Hickman?
yes,
Richard Morgan?
Yes.
Margaret Phillips?
Yes.
Jerry Trolley?
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Resolution 22-7 is adopted. Move on to business from the floor. Ms. Hillis. Nothing tonight, Mr. Trolley? Mr. Morgan?
I visited the beaches, and very good. And those rocks been driving me nuts for years. Not everyone is gone. I understand you can't get it all at once, but it's 1,000% better than it was. So, thank you for that. They both down by the lighthouse and City Beach. If the water ever comes up, I think you could actually walk on it now. So, well done.
Ms. Gangle?
Yes, thank you guys for coming out from Perry Street. Although there's a kind of fundamental difference in disagreement in the wetlands and the land over there, hoping that once the project concludes and it's maintained with the wildlife and fisheries, that it ends up being beautiful and not a pain point for you guys, and hopefully get that sand issue mitigated a little bit, because I know it does build up on that corner quite a bit, so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hickman?
nothing to say, Madam President, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, that whole beach area looks good. And I've been around here now the last 10 years paying attention for being on council. And I can see there's a big difference. The rocks, I'm glad they're gone. I was out there too. It's nice to see people going out on the walkway there and not seeing dead fish and things all over and leftover furs and all that business. We're just coming along little by little. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gilman?
I just wanted to thank the city for their efforts with the citywide cleanup. It ran smoothly as it does every year, and I appreciate it because I've been trying to get rid of some things, so nothing else, Madam President.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam President, I move this August body adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed the same sign? Aye. We're adjourned.